All right, a new Bitcoin ETF hits the market this week, this time in the US, but there is a lot you should know about it before diving into invest. We'll take a look at the Proshares Bitcoin ETF and the similarities and differences to previous ETFs and holding Bitcoin itself. The price of Bitcoin rallied last week ahead of a decision from the SEC to approve the first Bitcoin-linked ETF. The ETF symbol is BITO, and it's actually a Bitcoin Futures ETF put out by a company called Proshares. So this is the first of its kind in the US, sure, but we'll talk about the broader impact of this milestone and why I think it's a big deal a bit later. There are some key things to know about owning this ETF versus owning Bitcoin itself, and there are also key differences between this ETF and other Bitcoin ETFs we have talked about on this channel. So watch this whole video and then decide for yourself if this is the investment for you. But also, let me know in the comments if you have purchased this ETF, others, actual Bitcoin, or if you're just researching. That would be great. So looking at the brochure is the main and most important difference. This ETF is a Bitcoin Futures ETF. What that means is that they are managing contracts for Bitcoin and don't deal with Bitcoin itself. Where this gets tricky is, let's say you think Bitcoin is going to go up for the long term. Well, long-term futures contracts can be quite expensive, so the fund has to balance short and long-term contracts as the price of Bitcoin changes, which leads to a lot of management fees. I look at this more like Bitcoin options trading than actual Bitcoin. Now, most index ETFs follow some kind of established index and purchase stocks in specific quantities to reflect the value of the index as closely as they can. Original Bitcoin ETFs didn't allow you to hold physical Bitcoin, but they did purchase Bitcoin on your behalf and hold it in a cold storage wallet. So again, this is different than what Proshares ETF does. Next, how close will this follow the price of Bitcoin? This ETF will be benchmarking itself against the CF Bitcoin Dollar US Settlement Price Index, which is the aggregate Bitcoin to USD price. However, don't expect the price of this ETF to exactly match Bitcoin at every moment. Not only do these indexes update less often than the price of Bitcoin, but the fact that this fund uses contracts muddies things a little bit as well. This is similar to the original Bitcoin ETFs. They may not reflect the up-to-the-minute price of Bitcoin, but if this crypto is going up in the long term, these ETFs will follow the same trend. I would normally check the performance now and how closely the fund is following its NAV to see, how closely the fund reflects what it says it's supposed to follow. However, this is so new at this moment, these stats won't mean much yet, but I'll be very interested to see how this performs in the first few months. One other difference related to going the ETF route is that you cannot place trades when the exchange is closed. That means if Bitcoin is doing something on a Saturday, you can't buy or sell any until markets are open on Monday. But hey, some of you may like the fact that you can take your evenings and weekends off watching the price of Bitcoin. Who knows? Okay, finally the MER. While okay in competitiveness, the contract style of this ETF does make it a bit higher with the fees. I personally hold the CI Galaxy ETF as it's got low fees and they've promised to cap the MER at 0.95% should it go up. I don't want to rag on this ETF too much though. If I'm being fair, this ETF does exactly what it says it will do. Easily give you exposure to the Bitcoin market. What do you do with that? Well, you can now put this exposure in your tax advantaged accounts like your Roth IRA. You can't do that with currencies. So that's awesome. Also, you can trade this easily like any other stock or ETF on the New York Stock Exchange. You don't require accounts on crypto exchanges and a cold wallet, blah, 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 to do this. The big deal with this development that makes me most excited is that the approval of this type of ETF shows me that the SEC recognizes the legitimacy of cryptocurrency. We saw prices of Bitcoin drop dramatically when China outlawed it last month, but it looks like the US is willing to play ball with crypto as long as there is some regulation. That's the great news of this story. I think it's just a matter of time before we see US versions of ETFs that purchase physical Bitcoin too. The door wasn't shut in crypto's face. I have mentioned the 3 other Bitcoin ETFs already. Since this video is geared more towards my US viewers, it's worth mentioning while these trade on the TSX, there are versions of all 3 that let you make purchases in US dollars. For more info on these, check out the video I have right here and have yourself a great week.